Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me here at the channel Valkymie's Alchemy. I'm Valkymy, and today I'm going to discuss a system that I have discovered within the astrology system. And I named this new system that I've discovered and stumbled across Numerical Astro-Alchemy. And I love it. I'm so in love with it because it really shows how divine astrology is, how much of a calculator this really is, right? And how the math works regardless of how you do it, right? I just kind of, get to prying and probing and shit like that because I'm a Virgo. Okay, Mercury be all up in my mind and shit like that. I'd be like, well, I got questions, right? I get a little curious sometimes, okay? So when I stumbled across this, I was like, let me try it this way and that way, right? And it pretty much the maths with all of the aspects, right? Just to support again that I'll say this: God made a divine world, a calculated world. Now there's randomness to this world, right? But it's not in the way we transit. It's not in the way that the world works. The world is very much on a system of some type of calculations and ways that we can also alchemize, right? How we can add certain energies together to come up with new things. So all things maths, all things math. Now there are random things that happen. There are random events. I feel like spirit is very random, right? Like I think it's interesting that you see a bird and birds fly, right? But tell that to a penguin. All right, just some old random shit. And it's over in Antarctica, or well, not in Antarctica, where it's real cold and shit like that. So just randomly just see a fucking, bird with fins, I guess. I guess there aren't feathers. I don't look. I don't do the bird. This is not the bird commentary channel, all right? But it is very interesting, right? So spirit is very random. But the planet that we live, the divine source calculations, whatever the fuck you want to call it, toroidal field, okay? This experience is very much divinely set up, okay? And God left us with a super cool map tool, astronomy and astrology, which they should not be separated, okay? And within this system, I have discovered something else to talk about. So I'm just gonna run my shit. All right. Boom. And we're going to talk about the oppositions and the alchemy within the oppositions of the third house and of the ninth house. This is going to be fun. All right. All this shit is fun to me. All right. So if you're here having fun, you are my people. All right. Shout out, we friends. Shout out, homie. What up? Hope you doing all right. All right. We're going to talk about the third house, though, which is the internal aspect of communication and learning from the immediate environment. All right. Now, the opposite of the third house, again, oppositions work like fire, air. In this case, we're talking about the air, which is Gemini, mutable Gemini, and then the mutable fire house of the ninth house, Sagittarius, right? So we're talking air and fire when it comes to this opposition. All right. Ninth house is going to be the house of higher learning, travel, externally. X marks the spot, right? So this is like our worldly experiences. So if there is a setup that you're trying to do, right, that you're trying to aim for, Sagittarius being the archer, we're all aiming to have a set experience, right? And this is what the ninth house governs, all right? So the psychology basically is like internally, I got to talk to some people. I got to ask some questions. I got to get some intel on where I'm at, right? Third house gives very much like situational awareness because we have Mercury here. Mercury is going to run you on the intel. If you know a Mercury, somebody, a Gemini or a Virgo, they probably know where to plug at, especially them Geminis. They be knowing for sure because they govern the immediate environment, all right? Or wherever this aspect is transiting and traveling, all right? It's something very important about the psychology when it comes to astrology, about communication, about talking, about gathering intel, okay? As well. Now, when it comes to this third house as well, it's very mutable, much like that of the ninth house, okay? Mutable energy, and this is what's cool about the modalities too, is they get the mode, okay? Oppositions are already ready to op up because they know what time we on, right? We on this kind of mode, right? And this is a mutable, things can change at any moment, right? When we think about worldly experiences, let's say you hear something about a place, right, that you have been planning on going for a long time, and then you heard some shit, and you don't like what, well, we gonna have to change the venue, right? That kind of thing, right? All things that kind of correspond to this third house and this ninth house, right? Let's think also too about like worldly experiences, right? Sometimes you have these ideas internally in your mind as we have these conversations about what the experience is going to be, right? Because we're looking at the opposite end here. And once we have the experience, right, we realize it was nothing like we thought it might be. Okay, that happens more often than not, right? You have an ideal, or your mind has a lot of chattering about how things are going to go, and then there's this wildfire that happens with Sagittarius in the 9th house that just says, yo, let God be God. Okay, let's just have the freedom to like just see all this shit kind of explore. And with that, like, it causes Mercury, I feel like, to often retrograde. Okay. In fact, Mercury retrogrades the most of all of the planets. And since we're talking about the 3rd house, when we have worldly experiences, a lot of times we want to revisit, right? Like either you enjoyed the motherfucking experience and you want to retrograde, or it was something that you missed, right? Maybe you got to scan the environment. Maybe you go somewhere, right? And in the world, actually travel somewhere, and you leave your shit, right? Now you got to go back to that environment and scan around and observe and see where you were last retrograding. Okay, so this is where all of this becomes important by way of our experiences. Now, when it comes to the alchemy, all right, I ain't talk about the 9th house. Let me go and run on the 9th house a little bit more. Now, before I get into the alchemy here, because we're just going to add what this comes up to. But let's talk about the 9th house, the opposite axis of the 3rd house. This is Sagittarius. This is worldly experience. This is Jupiter, okay? Mutable fire. And Jupiter is the wise teacher. Shout out to all my Jupiterians. I have Neptune on my 1st house, and I'm also a rising Sag. Yeah. God said be free this lifetime, bitch. Don't tame that, man. Let it be wild. When I wear like conservative hairstyles and it's just like, not I said the cat. It just don't. I can do it because I'm a Virgo too. And look, I ain't running my shit. I'm not running my shit. Let me get focused. But run your shit, pop your shit again. Leo, I'm sorry, I didn't say this before, but it is Leo season, okay? So as I'm doing this content. So yeah, we all kind of own our shit. We all shine and we vibe. And if you guys have a talent or a gift, show that shit off, all right? Don't sit on your shit. I'm telling you. I'm telling myself this, really, right? So if you're talking to the mirror, all right, and we see each other, show that shit off, man. Shit. You never know. But let's go back into the content when it comes to the 9th house. Now, the 9th house is worldly experiences. We have the very freedom, loving, and lucky. Shout out to Lucky Day. Very lucky Sagittarius energy, which is governed by Jupiter in the 9th house. Now, Jupiter is the wise teacher, right? So what brings us luck from these worldly experiences? Wisdom, okay? Like, it's dope because you don't really know what the experience is like until you experience it. And this is also why experience trumps the ideal of our immediate environment. Now, I mean, they're very both important. I don't want to say one's like greater than the other or lesser, because there's sometimes when you have worldly experiences, you'd be like, oh, bitch, you should have read the manual. You don't know what's going on now. You know what I mean? Like, you were supposed to get this intel before you got here, right? So preparation always helps out, right? Which is what the 3rd house is great for. Okay, when we get that intel that becomes useful out in the world, right? But what trumps, in fact, Jupiter trumps most things because it's X marks the spot, okay? It's not me, God said this, okay? Because right up there with Sagittarius, where Sagittarius points, and I'm going to learn the technology where I can like show people the astronomy. I gotta get my computer fixed. But I'm going to like learn, I just have to, I'm educating myself as I go right now. It's just guerrilla style, okay? So shout out, like I said, if you're here, you're early. You're my people, okay? I sent for you. Thank you for answering the call, all right? But get my computer fixed, and I'm going to learn how to do the demonstrations as I show the astronomy. But basically, Sagittarius is the constellation Jupiter, of course, known as the father star, okay, aka farther star, father, daddy, all right? Jupiter basically governing in the 9th house. We see Sagittarius as the reference. Sag is pointing towards the crux constellation, right, which looks like an X. It's also the symbol of the Christian cross, okay? And it's the X that marks the spot, right? It's an alignment that comes up with the sun. And when it makes this alignment towards the end of fall, it kind of marks winter, like the 3 days that it spends on the cross marks the 3 zodiacal transits that we'll go through during winter, okay? Because winter's tough, bitch. All right, any other time that you want Mother Earth to grow you some, she got your back. But when it come wintertime, you gotta get your ass inside. She not gonna play with you. Okay. And she deserves it, right? She deserves her rest, but you need to be prepared as well, right? So there's this great alignment that comes up as well every year annually with this particular constellation and the sun. All right. So the X that marks the spot is showing a lot of significance, right? But not only that, right? When we think, let me just run it, right? When we talk about the number 9 and the planet Jupiter, all right. Jupiter is the father star. Jupiter is known as that by way of the etymology, but also Jupiter is known as a Latin term, Agnus Dei, I believe, Agnus Dei, which means Lamb of God. So there's another correlation to terminologies by way of the Christian Bible and the Father God, because the concept here, and when we're talking about astrological concepts, right? The concept here of the philosophy to say that experience is like the God is what we're saying, is basically what astrology is kind of like pulling out. It's true. It's the experience, right? As much as we want to say love, like Venus is like the goddess. Okay, love is cool. All right, but love, we need some goddamn adjectives. All right, because what kind of love you talking about? You talking about that toxic shit? Oh, I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss that train. You might as well go on to the next stop, okay? Now, if you got some good adjectives with it, maybe we can have a conversation. Okay, patient love. Oh, I love that. Considerate love. Yes, sign me up, okay? Compassionate love. Ooh, you talking my language, okay? But some of that other shit, like instant love. I could talk a lot about love because I have a Libra moon. Again, I'm not talking about me. Leo just be showing up. God damn, I'm just running my mouth about myself. But run your mouth about yourself sometimes, okay? Sometimes you got to talk yourself up. But the point that I was making is about the 9th house being the father's star, all right? This principle of governing, okay? And again, like I made those examples about the planets, but I really want to talk about the numerology here and the hidden alchemy. Venus rules the 2nd house and the 7th house, 9. Mercury rules the 3rd house and the 6th house, 9. Mars rules the 1st house and the 8th house, 9. You got the sun and the moon. I knock sun and moon. All right. Shout out to the mommy. 4 and the 5. That makes 9. 9 is a governing principle. 9 is a circle. 9 is a line or a 0 and the 1. So you have the beginning of the number line becoming the end. It's just the alpha omega. All right. 9 is big shit. 9 trumps it all, you know. God said that, all right? Don't blame my ego. Okay, if you're not a Sagittarius this lifetime, or if you're not a rising Sagittarius this lifetime, not my fault. No, I'm kidding. But God made all his children beautiful, all right? God didn't make any one greater or lesser than the other. But we're just saying here, by way of the perspective, from what astrology is saying at least, right? Experience is the greatest of them all because that's what it's about. You came to experience life, man. You came to see how far you can go in this lifetime. You came to see how far you can take this dream. You came to see how far you can take that building that you're making, right? That's something that you are doing, right? You want to see how far it can go. How far can your children go? How far can this relationship go? How far will this job go? How far will this industry take me, right? That's what we're doing, right? We're doing this by way of these worldly experiences. And sometimes we just want to be open to the freedom of like, you know, getting outside, right? Seeing what the world has to offer, becoming enlightened, right? That's a big shit about life, right? So again, there's all this energy that points to the 9th house. So yes. Sagittarius does trump, in this case, the opposition of the 3rd house. Even like when it comes to like getting a job, right? For the most part, people are looking for an experienced candidate versus one who's just like get all the credentials and the knowledge and the certificates that they need and the degrees and all that, right? All those checks are nice, right? But can you do the job? Have you actually done the role? Okay. Now God is very random. Okay. Spirit is very random. This is mutable energy. So God can show up any kind of way that he want to or it want to. Okay. Non-binary, right? Whatever this experience wants to become, it can absolutely become that, right? So at the same time, maybe we need a candidate that, you know, is fresh. All right, we don't need none of these old hands. It's just fucked up when you get old, man. Like, motherfuckers, old hand. Like, just shady shit. You could be a spring chicken. Old ass hand. I'm silly as hell, y'all. Okay, boom. Point is, all right. What was the point? Something about Sagittarius. I know I was talking about Sagittarius. See, Sag do this shit, just go wild on you. Okay. Oh yeah, the mutable energy, right? Boom. So yeah, God is kind of damn random, right? So you might be the new fresh candidate that they are looking for because you are so fresh and you have this cool way of seeing the environment, right? Versus somebody who's a little bit more seasoned in the game. We need something a little bit fresher, right? So Jupiter loves the relationship that it has with Mercury. Okay. Don't get it twisted. I done said a lot, but I'm gonna stamp that, okay? We love these oppositions. These oppositions work together. It really shouldn't be on no versus tip. It really, you know, you gotta kind of find the balance for them to work together, because here we're gonna look at the alchemy. Boom, this is a great way to seg into the alchemy here. Now, when it comes to the 3rd house and the 9th house, right? 3 plus 9, of course, makes 12, all right? But this is a very interesting pair because we're looking at the double digits. So we can reduce this, or because it's 12 and 12 does hit on the astrological wheel, we can leave it there, okay? So we're going to talk about 2 alchemical processes that happen when we have worldly experiences, when we have worldly experiences, and when we consider what the environment had to say, what we learn through these worldly experiences, right? Because we're adding these 2 energies together, right? I've had the time to look at the environment. I've learned, I've got the education and the intel. I went out and I applied this intel in real life, in the world, to see how far it would take me, right? Shout out to George Washington Cobb, right? The nigga took the peanut. He said, I'm gonna study this motherfucker. I said, I wanna learn everything I can learn about this daggum peanut, right? Gave you the peanut butter, the peanut oil, bitch. All kind of chocolate covered peanuts. He done gave us everything that we need when it comes to the peanut, okay? Shout him out. But he did that through the observational, do this whole 3rd house, 9th house aspect of getting the intel and seeing how far it can go, right? So, with that being said, let's get back to the alchemy, all right? It's the 12th house that can be the hidden knowledge, right? He didn't know all of what that peanut was going to discover. He said, in fact, I remember seeing the quote that he's had. I think George Washington asked God, can he know everything there is to know about the world and universe? And God said, that's too much. Okay, I know you're smart. I know you're my child, but baby, if I do that, I might send you over there to somebody's psych ward. Okay, I'm not going to do all of that. But he said, okay, let me remix it. Let me find out what's going on with this peanut. And he discovered it, right? What was unknown became unveiled, all right? So this is the 12th house, the endings, the unveiling of things, right? The subconscious mind, right? Dream world, all that shit. So when it comes to the 12th house, it's also mutable. Boom, boom, boom. So again, the oppositions know what time we on, okay? I know that I'm learning about worldly experiences, or basically let's say you're traveling, right? You get the guide, you get all the menus and options and shit that you can do, right? So that you can have that experience when you travel, right? And ultimately, you know how this thing's supposed to turn out in the end, okay? If you decide to take your ass up to Mount Kilimanjaro and hike, don't go up there with no goddamn Crocs. Right? You know what I mean? Because you studied and you understood what it was going to take to get you towards the end of it, right? So this is the alchemy that we're just talking about here, y'all. Boom, okay? Also, when you think about, too, like, if you have a really cool experience, worldly experience, okay, it's something about having experiences and want to talk about it, right? Whether you're having the conversation externally with somebody else, like, oh my gosh, this was a great movie, or I love this restaurant, right? Or if you're just having an internal dialogue about some shit, like some shit that you couldn't process. Can't believe this motherfucker did that. Or you're revisiting, like sometimes because Mercury a little retrograde, all right? So it's sending you back around that motherfucker after an experience that you done had with somebody in this world. Like, let me just revisit all this shit, okay? Let me go back and see, because when he said this, was he really trying to say subconscious? I'm trying to get to the bottom of this shit. I'm trying to get to what's hidden. The alchemy is real, y'all. That's all I'm gonna say. The alchemy is motherfucking real, okay? Shout you out if you're watching my channel. My name is Valkymie's Alchemy, and yes, I love to talk about all things alchemical when it comes within astrology, and there's so many different aspects that we are going to cover, all right? So we're talking about the aspect of, I just had to kind of like tamper that real quick. I had to just cool it out for a second because I was about to go there, all right? But that's essentially the alchemy of the 12th house when it comes to the 3 and the 9, right? We are taking the 3rd house energy. I said the alchemy of the 9th house. I should say the alchemy of the oppositions of the 3rd house and the 9th house, right? So we're taking what we learn internally, but the immediate environment, right? This intel that we gather, this information, and we test it out in the world, see how far we can go with it, right? Boom. What happens also, though, when we think about the 12 that it adds up to, if we were to reduce that to a single digit number, we would go back to 3. And I just think it's really beautiful. I think it's beautiful because I feel like here with the alchemy of like the 3rd house and the 9th house, there's something about spirit just saying like, just be willing to learn, right? Let these worldly experiences teach you. There have been so many times I went out into the world thinking I was supposed to know it all because motherfuckers told me that, you know, like you should know this, right? The world will put a lot of fucking projections on your ass, bitch. And if you're not careful, you'll be wearing 31 jackets, burning up. Can barely walk and shit. You just got so much fabric and you so heavy from shit, right? You know, so you don't always get the reminder that life is about learning. You know, we really are students of life. We really are just trying to see what's out there, how far we can take some shit with, you know, how we can become enlightened from these experiences, right? What advancement can teach us, right? The steps to the fucking process, all the wisdom that Jupiter has, that is the benefactor, right? That wants to put some coins in your bucket. But you got to be willing to learn. You got to be willing to make wise efforts at your approach towards your experiences, your worldly experiences. At least that's what God said, you know? Because again, I'm just, you know, I'm just speaking. I'm just breaking down this groovy, all these groovy concepts and stuff like that. Now I can feel my energy running a little bit low. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up because I moonlight at night and, you know, but hey, we going to see. We're going to get some shit popping. Okay, speaking of worldly experiences, right? One of the benefits of moonlighting at night is that I'm outside at night. And I've learned so much about the transits and how the moon appears. And I'm looking and learning how to find new constellations. Not new constellations, you know, ain't new and shit like that. But it's new to me because I'm learning how to do it, right? So this new process of finding the stars and constellations, right? I'm doing all that shit because I'm just up at night, right? So sometimes it's just about being open to the experience, right? That's the cool thing about mutable energy, right? It doesn't really take the side of being cardinal, like how it wants to lead into the matter. And mutable energy knows, like, you know, night will turn into day, right? So it ain't gonna be night forever, right? So things are going to change. It's not fixed and locked in. And that's the beauty here. We really are flexible and able to learn and pivot. And if you can go into the experiences with the openness of saying, hey, I'm just willing to learn. Mercury is a good teacher too. Mercury is learning by way of observing, by way of gathering the intel, by way of educating and expressing yourself too, right? Looking at the expressions that are within the environment. And when we can do that and just go in with it with the freedom of letting the experience just kind of be the experience, like it just unlocks a lot of shit, right? And I feel like that's that luckiness, that lucky nature of Jupiter. That's the benefit of Jupiter. That's the benefit of fucking any experience, right? Be it good or bad, right? Like sometimes we try shit and we don't like it. But it was the experience, right? I know now. I'm aware now. I'm enlightened now. You know, I'm educated now, right? All of the things that work into the alchemy of how things manifest and work out. So, yo, that's my time pretty much on this, y'all. I think I've said every freaking thing that I can think to say when it comes to this particular opposition. Shout out also to Crystal Savoy. These are the Crystal Savoy cards that I use. I think they're, I mean, you know, of course I ain't sponsored on shit like that. But if you want to learn astrology, this is like a really cool, just concise type, if you just need to run some shit real quick on the principles. Now, also, if you want to learn astrology, stick around. Okay, I know a lot. I've been spending a long time just, you know, studying these concepts and being amazed, being a student of life to see how things work in real life and just, you know, learning. And it's been amazing so far. So yes, if you want to learn, you're in the right place. Please stick around. And since this is my time, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to spend with me as I talk about this concept of numerical Astro-Alchemy, where we look at the aspects in astrology and find additional intel through the alchemy of how these energies add up. I could have went in real quick. I just thought about it. I could go in real quick about how things make you feel in the end, how experiences make you feel. Sometimes we want to communicate our emotions and how we feel because we're talking the 12th house as well. Yeah. And one last thing before I let us go, because I just thought about this, and I'm like I said, I'm just amazed when I be tapped in the spirit. Like I just begin, shit just be coming to me, and I be getting revelations. But the dream world, which is what the 12th house represents, the subconscious mind, the dream world, right? It's very similar to the immediate environment. Now, hear me out. We know in dreams you can fly and you can meet people, Elvis and shit. You can talk to folks that you know. You can do all kind of shit. You know, in a dream you can ride a yellow baby elephant if you desire to, or if your subconscious was to take you into that experience, right? But you always see it from the experience of an observer, which is what the immediate environment talks about within the 3rd house, which is what Mercury talks about, right? It's like, we're not dreaming ever from a perspective of like watching our life or some shit like that, you know? Like it's like you're experiencing the dream, just like you would be experiencing your environment, right? So it's something really groovy about this energy, this divine system, where things kind of change a bit, but they have a certain resonance that kind of always brings you back to the fact that this shit is working out. This shit is calculated. And if it's working out and it's calculated, that means that you can calculate some shit, right? This means that you can make this shit work in your favor if you get this motherfucking math right. You know, I'm not trying to get these numbers running, right, in the right direction. So, yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna say, y'all, because I really don't like these videos to be too long, because we got shit to do, all right? But if you, like, again, if you took the time to check me out, appreciate it, all right, so much. Thanks again. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I'm a baby channel, so I'm trying to work up on my subscribers, and I'm coming out with consistent content. So I am on a ritual mission. All right, I made the promise to myself to share this intel that I have discovered, and I'm enjoying the journey as I do it and learning a lot as well. All right, so the growth is going to be cool, like coming back to check this out like later on and be like, oh, but you was doing this. Anyway, I keep having these vulnerable moments, and I'm just gonna on that note, say thanks again for checking me out. Like, share, all right, subscribe, and come back for sure if you are enjoying the content. If you do nothing else, and if you got to this point and you enjoy the content, please come back. I do this shit all the time, and I love having these conversations, and I'm looking so forward to the next one with you guys. So until then, take care. Bye.